1991 was the year Lennox Lewis truly announced himself on the heavyweight stage. A year packed with explosive knockouts, ruthless European title defenses, and capped off by a huge all-British showdown that had the nation buzzing. The night Lewis staked his claim as Britain's next heavyweight star and captured the British title in devastating fashion. Fight 15, 6th March, 1991, Wembley Arena, London. Lennox Lewis faced fellow Brit Gary Mason, who entered the fight with an imposing 35-0 record. 32 of those victories coming by knockout. Mason had been one of Britain's most feared heavyweights of the late 1980s, but his career had already been marred by a detached retina sustained in a bout with Everett Martin in 1990. After a short retirement, Mason returned in search of glory, with the European and British heavyweight titles on the line against Lewis. The fight itself was competitive in the early rounds, with Mason's power and experience keeping him in contention. However, Lewis fought with a calculated approach, consistently targeting Mason's vulnerable eye. By the 7th round, the damage was too severe, and the referee stepped in to halt the contest, awarding Lewis victory by TKO. It was a significant breakthrough win for Lewis. Not only had he handed Mason the first loss of his career, but he also cemented himself as Britain's new heavyweight star. Mason would attempt a short comeback in the United States, winning 2 more fights, but ultimately retired for good, his eye injury too serious to risk further punishment. For Lewis, this was just the beginning of his rise to the top of the division. Fight 16, 12 July 1991, Caesars Tahoe, Outdoor Arena, State Line, Nevada. Lennox Lewis crossed the Atlantic, taking on seasoned veteran Mike Weaver, who entered the bout with a record of 35-15-1. Weaver was no ordinary opponent. He was a former WBA heavyweight champion, having held the belt from 1980 to 1982. Although past his prime by the early 90s, Weaver remained dangerous and had only recently gone the distance in a tough 12-rounder against James Bone Crusher Smith in April 1990. From the opening bell, Lewis dominated with his sharp jab and superior athleticism, controlling the pace and keeping Weaver on the defensive. As the rounds progressed, Lewis began to open up with heavier shots, showcasing the raw power that was quickly earning him a reputation as one of the division's most feared punchers. In round 6, Lewis produced one of the most spectacular knockouts of his career to date. A perfectly timed, thunderous right hand crashed through Weaver's guard, sending the former champion down heavily and ending the contest instantly. It was a highlight reel finish and a statement victory on American soil. For Lewis, this was more than just another win. It was proof that he belonged among the world's elite heavyweights and was ready to chase world title glory. Fight 17, 30 September 1991, Royal Albert Hall, London. Lennox Lewis returned to the Royal Albert Hall to face fellow Brit Glenn McCrory, who entered the fight with a record of 28-6. McCrory was no stranger to success, having been the IBF Cruiserweight champion, before stepping up to the heavyweight division in search of new opportunities. However, the size and power gap between the two men was evident from the start. Lewis controlled the early action with his jab and rangy movement, keeping McCrory on the back foot. In round 2, Lewis unleashed a trademark thunderous right hand that McCrory simply couldn't withstand. The shot floored the former cruiserweight champion and forced the referee to step in, handing Lewis a decisive stoppage victory. It was another emphatic performance from Lewis, who showed once again that his combination of power, precision, and size was far too much for most opponents to handle. This win further cemented his growing reputation as Britain's leading heavyweight force. Fight 18, 23 November 1991, Atlanta, Georgia. Lennox Lewis crossed the Atlantic once again, this time to Atlanta, Georgia, to face fellow Olympic gold medalist Tyrell Biggs, who entered the bout with a record of 19-4. Biggs had captured the super heavyweight gold medal at the 1984 Olympics, while Lewis had famously won gold in Seoul. Biggs was perhaps best known for challenging Mike Tyson for the undisputed heavyweight title in 1987, where he had some early success before ultimately being overwhelmed and stopped in round 7. Like many of Lewis's opponents around this period, Biggs had also recently faced Riddick Bowe, suffering an 8th round stoppage defeat. Against Lewis, Biggs fared even worse. After a cautious start, Lewis's power and accuracy quickly took control. In round 3, Lewis turned up the pressure, flooring Biggs 3 separate times in the round with crushing shots. With Biggs unable to cope and clearly out of his depth, the referee stepped in to stop the contest. It was another dominant performance from Lewis, who once again showcased his frightening finishing ability. By the end of 1991, Lewis was rapidly establishing himself as a world-class heavyweight, and it was becoming clear that bigger challenges awaited him in the years ahead.